Greetings, dear Africans, dear world community. This is another moment that we take to come together to discuss and to listen to this important subject matter, which is the emancipation of Africa, emancipation of African people, liberation of African people, and the world at large, because the brainwashing and mental slavery does not base only on African people, but also to the rest part of the world. So, speaking as a Rastafari, my name is Bogalech Tafari, speaking from Rwanda, Africa. We know that liberation is very important. Emancipation from mental slavery, from spiritual slavery. People have to be free, especially African people. Because we Africans, we know the time when we passed as slaves, the time of colonialism. Those were the periods that we were tried and we were put in a situation of mental slavery, spiritual slavery, oppression in general. And as we recognize that, as so far we recognize that we've been redeemed, we've been liberated from colonialism. We say now we are independent, we have independence. Although it is true that the independence is not a full independence. So our struggle for emancipation, the total emancipation, total liberation, still there. We still have this struggle. We have not finished. When we see the brainwashing still in African people. We see mental slavery, colonial oppression is still around African continent and African people. So it is our struggle so far, we Africans, to make sure that we finish it, because it must be finished. Who said that it cannot be finished? It must be finished. And when we are discussing about this, we know that education is the most important thing as a tool in our struggle for giving us what we want, the real freedom, the real emancipation. Education. Emperor Haile Selassie, Emperor Haile Selassie was the Emperor of Ethiopia, and at the same time was the Minister of Education for 20 years. This man is a great person for the total independence and freedom of African continent and the world at large. Emperor Haile Selassie, the real man who struggled, who paid in blood until Ethiopia was sacrificed for the independence of Africa from foreign domination. So he was the Emperor of Ethiopia and Minister of Education for 20 years, because education is something very, very crucial for total liberation, total emancipation. And so at this moment, we find that we have to take a moment to educate people, to educate African people, to have the love and nationalism with our continent, with our staff, our legacy, divine legacy. We need to know and to value it, to demand our dignity, which has been destroyed by the colonial masters, slave masters. That's why we can see today African people think about fleeing our continent toward other continents to go looking for job, to go looking for life. Fleeing our continent, something which is not understandable. How come you can flee your home and willingly decide to be a stranger, someone else, and thinking that you can live better, you can be better? That is never true. The betterment of yourself must be at home. Home sweet home always. So African people flee. They accept even to make a risky journey from Africa to Europe. We see how African people die, humiliated, badly treated in crossing the Mediterranean Sea to Europe. This exposes the real mental slavery that is still lingering in minds of black people and African people. Abandoning our culture, hating our culture, thinking that we have to take the cultures from abroad. This still showing that we are really far from liberation. We are still under colonial power in our mind, in our souls. So it's a moment that we need to take time by time, day by day, discussing about freeing black people, setting ourselves free from these things. And we have several leaders of Africa at home and abroad who have committed with themselves, taking the responsibility of educating, teaching, and we have to go through their teachings because of the people sacrifice themselves, work hard for the freedom of African people. Emperor Haile Selassie, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, Patrice Lumumba, Kwame Nkrumah, Thomas Sankara. Recent, we had John Pombe Magufuli. Today, we have Captain Ibrahim Traore. These are people that we have to pay tribute by going through their teachings day by day. In general, Haile Selassie, the King of Kings of Ethiopia, Lord of Lords, conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah, is the one who is incomparable with others. Is the real redeemer of African continent. Is the real one, the father of the continent and the father of this world, because he's the one who brought the independence of Africa and the world at large. When he prophesied about the coming of the World War II, because the world conspiracy in the League of Nations came to invade Ethiopia, putting forward Benito Mussolini, Italy, invading Ethiopia for the second time. Haile Selassie prophesied that because you have decided to abandon the agreement of the League of Nations and allow the invasion of Italy over Ethiopia, God and history shall remember your judgment. It is us today, it will be you tomorrow. After that, in a short distance of 3 years, it was World War II. And after World War II, it was independence of the world. So who is Selassie? The real King of Kings, Lord of Lords, conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah, the second coming of the Son of God, Yeshua HaMashiach. Some people called him Jesus Christ, our black Lord and Savior. Haile Selassie is the real leader because Africa was liberated by one man, by one nation which had never been colonized. And this is Ethiopia. Ethiopia has never been colonized. And automatically, it became the speaker of the continent in the League of Nations. Since 1923, Haile Selassie was representative of Ethiopia in the League of Nations. When Ethiopia was a member in the League of Nations, 1923, there is no African continent, African nation was free at that time, was independent at that time, except Ethiopia because it had never been colonized. And Haile Selassie was speaking about, was defending. Haile Selassie was the advocate of the oppressed community of the world, the advocate of African continent. And we have to recognize that Kwame Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba, Thomas Sankara, all were liberated by Haile Selassie. All nations of Africa were liberated by Ethiopia, our ancient nation. So, Haile Selassie did many teachings. And one of them that today we would like to talk about is his speech when he said, it's a long speech, but one part at the end of it, he said, Africa is our nation, and today it is in spiritual and physical bondage because her leaders are turning to outside forces for the solution of African problems, while everything that Africa needs is within her. Everything that Africa needs is within her. Haile Selassie continued and said, Africans, righteous people, when they come together, and the world will come together. And this is our divine destiny. This is our divine destiny. True unity of Africans, because unity is the only solution of African problems. Real unity. This is the message to African leaders today and even after. This is the message to African leaders. You are turning to outside forces for the solution of African problems, while everything that Africa needs is within her. That's why we are in spiritual and physical bondage so far. Haile Selassie said that. So, this is a great teaching. That unity is important. First of all, unity of our leaders. Our leaders should have a true unity. Because when we are united and we with one intention of defending, protecting Africa, we are sure that we have defeated our enemy. 100% our enemy is completely defeated. Because our enemy so far is benefiting through our disunity. So, unity. And to fight against the brainwashing, lies which have been taught during the period of colonialism. The colonial masters, slave masters are still keeping to put African people in mental slavery. And this mental slavery come from what? Come from one principle they use, that to teach you to abandon your culture. Teaching you Africans that your culture is nothing, you have to put it away and adapt their culture. What is culture? Our natural way of living, of behaving. This is the culture. So dear Africans, it is quite important at this moment to know that freedom is important. Emancipation is important. We speak this because when I see one African man, although it's not me, but is another black man, another African man, is humiliated, is embarrassing himself, I feel humiliated too. I feel embarrassed too. Is enslaved by someone else, I feel enslaved too. So if I want to see that I'm free, I'm a man with dignity, I'm a valuable person, self-esteemed person, self-reliant person, I need to see also to my fellow Africans we look the same. That we feel satisfied. But we can't be satisfied to see that me, I'm emancipated, but the majority of African people are still enslaved. This is nothing. That's why always we speak about freedom, liberation, emancipation of African continent, African people. Give thanks for this moment. We are together. Subscribe our channel to get more teachings like this about Africa and African people. Thanks for now, but let's make Africa great.